This is TWiT.
People didn't notice is I was in the same town as Sam Altman on Friday.
Oh, really?
He was there for the race. He was in Vegas for the race as well. Got a call at 12 noon. He got a text from Ilya Sutskever, who is the chief scientist at OpenAI, saying, Sam board would like to meet with you at noon. You know, here's the Google Meet. I think it's hysterical they use Google Meet. Like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Ridiculous.
What? Are you kidding me? Anyway, he gets on the Google Meet. Within 5 minutes, you're fired, Sam. You're out of here. Greg Brockman, who's the chairman of the board, wasn't at this meeting, fired also.
Demoted. Removed from chairman of the board.
And then quit.
He retained his position as president and then quit within a few hours.
And basically said, I'm loyal to Sam, and I'm going with him. Ilya Sutskever is one of the founders of OpenAI, but also more importantly, came to OpenAI from his research fellowship. It was at MIT with Jeffrey Hinton. So he's a premier AI scientist. And we learned since then that he was also a deep believer, a true believer in AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Well, they all believe in AGI. He also believes in effective altruism.
Yeah.
They all believe that they can make AGI and be all powerful.
I actually wrote an opening statement for this show in which I explain exactly what happened. Would you like me to read it?
Let's hear it, sir.
I put it up on our community. The board, in my opinion, was doing its job as least as far as the nonprofit was concerned. OpenAI is a 501c3 nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Part of it is, right?
Well, the problem is OpenAI is really two companies. In fact, Ben Thompson in his Stratechery column had the ever-changing MO of OpenAI. When you apply for a nonprofit, you have to write a little thing in the form. It asks the government asks you to briefly describe the organization's mission or most significant activities. In the first filing in 2016, they wrote, as they're applying for the 501c3, OpenAI's goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole. Really important clause here. Unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. We think artificial intelligence technology will help shape the 21st century, and we want to help the world build a safe, underscore that, AI technology and ensure that AI's benefits are as widely and evenly distributed as possible. We're trying to build an AI as part of a larger community. We want to openly share our plans and capabilities along the way. Now, this is when Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and a few others were starting OpenAI. And that was the mission at first. And that's why they wanted to be a nonprofit, is they didn't want big tech, chiefly Google, to get AI first, to own AI. Because I think if you believe in AGI, then your concern is that once AGI basically means an AI is able to reason as well as a human, or better. Actually, if they can reason as well as a human, they will soon be able to reason better than a human, because the development will then suddenly explode. And at that point, all value disappears from big tech. All value disappears from the world. Everything changes dramatically. I'm not saying AGI will take over the world, but everything changes dramatically. And so they want to make sure that was done in a safe way, in a fair way, right?
But then they got in bed with Microsoft?
Well, wait a minute. I think that, by the way, is honorable. And this is
But let me just, a lot of this is predicated on TESCREAL.
I understand.
Long-termism, effective altruism. So each side has their own brand of nuttiness.
It's effective altruism, but before you even get to that, you have to buy into the idea that there is an AGI coming soon, right? Okay. That there's going to be...
they believe that.
They all believe that, and you have to believe that. And if you believe that, I think it's honorable to say, Jesus, this could change everything, so we want to try to make this equitable.
Okay. Point.
I think that's completely honorable, and that was the goal.
All right.
2 years later, the part that said openly share plans was gone. They closed it off. This, by the way, this is 2018. That's when Elon split.
That's when he left, right?
Dudes, that's not what we started this about. But Sam Altman stayed. Sutskever stayed. 3 years after that, they changed the goal of advancing digital intelligence to, and this is also important, building general purpose artificial intelligence, AGI. They specifically said, our goal now is to build an AGI. So,
what year was that?
That was let's see. So they applied in 2015. I'm sorry, 2016. 2018, the split with Elon. 2021, they said we're going to go after AGI. So what really happened, to continue on with my thesis, what really happened is you had two companies. You had a nonprofit that wanted it to be safe. But they quickly realized, and by 2021 realized, this is going to cost so damn much money. We have to have a for-profit arm.
We need some money
to finance this, because ChatGPT is burning money.
$1 billion wasn't nearly enough.
Yeah.
I think they said like 100 billion.
Yeah. It's
what they'd
hugely
need.
expensive. So by the time we get to this board meeting, there's 6 board members. By the way, that changed over time, but there's 6 board members. There's the chairman, Greg Brockman. There's the president, the CEO, Sam Altman. There's the chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever. And then there are, that's 3 others that are, and by the way, nobody has shares. None of these people, that's intentional. They don't want them to have any profit motive at all, right? It's supposed to be nonprofit. And you guys are not going to benefit. Altman doesn't have shares. Brockman doesn't have shares. Sutskever doesn't have shares.
I believe Brockman does have shares.
Really?
Well, yeah, because there's shares in it from Paris from. There's an investment in there from, what was his prior employer he got fired from?
So he brought. Well, anyway. Okay, so he has a dog in this hunt.
He has some shares indirectly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Altman we know
very
does
few.
not, and Sutskever does not.
Yes.
And then there were 3 board members who were really from well, one was weirdly from Quora, the founder of Quora. That was a little weird. Quora has its own AI, by the way, called Poe. So I don't know about him. But the other 2 women were researchers and scientists, experts in the field, and clearly were on the board to represent that nonprofit safe contingent. So I think you had a 3-3 split on the board. You had Sutskever, Brockman, and Altman, and then you had the kind of the science folks, and there was a balance.
/EA people.
But the New York Times reported today there's been tension for years between these 2 groups. And what happened, I believe, and by the way, great reporting from The Information, and I know that you're up on this, Paris, so throw in anything you have to say about this. But what I think happened was Ilya Sutskever, who was initially on the 3 with Altman and Brockman, changed sides. He's a chief scientist. It was reported a year ago at the Christmas party, getting everybody to chant, "Feel the AGI, feel the AGI." He's a true believer in artificial general intelligence.
Okay.
He switched sides, and I think what happened is, he's an academic, remember? He's not a business person. I think he got scared and said, you know what? Sam, and maybe Greg too, but for sure Sam is commercializing this. We're losing control of it. We're losing the safety angle. We got to do something. He went, now by switching over, now it's 4 against 2. And the 4 deposed the 2, basically. And incidentally, the thing that I saw so much about was, oh my God, they've destroyed so much value. Microsoft stock plummets. The investors are crazy. The whole focus was, I listened in to Jason Calacanis and David Sachs talking about this. And David Sachs says,
Jesus.
well, as you know,
Yeah.
Adams, I had to find out.
What you do for the show.
For the
Leo,
show,
thank
I
you.
did it. He says, as you know, Adam Smith said, you can only trust a capitalist because you know his motive is profit. The butcher doesn't cut meat because he's an altruist. He cuts meat because that's how he makes a living. And you can trust him because he wouldn't make a living if he didn't do the job right and cheated you and all this stuff. The only way to trust a business is to have them have a for-profit motive. And honestly, I think that's the group that was most upset by this, because the board, who really, they didn't care that the stock market hadn't closed. They didn't care that they were going to lose the staff. They wanted to stop it in its tracks because it was going in an unsafe direction. That's my opinion.
They didn't have any skin in the game, though, right? The board?
Yeah, but they shouldn't have because their
In
job
that
was
structure.
and
That is the setup.
that's the setup. They shouldn't have because they're there to protect us again. And if you believe in AGI, this is the big thing. Remember what Sam Altman's, and by the way, Sam had other businesses, including, remember that orb that you do your iris in? And that was really about a cryptocurrency called
Oh, that was him?
Yes. That was a cryptocurrency called WorldCoin. And the real purpose of WorldCoin was universal basic income.
Yeah.
Because he believed AGI was coming, everybody was going to be out of work. So we got to make sure we have universal basic income.
The hubris of these guys is just
That's the test creole.
awe-inspiring. It is.
He also
that
was
without
going to
irony,
the Saudi sovereign fund. He was raising money with Sun at SoftBank for a special AI device to be designed by Johnny Ive. He had all these, but this is, by the way,
He's also invested in all of your pins, your Rewind AI, your Humane AI as well. And I mean, I think something that's important here is in the weeks leading up to when he got ousted, there was kind of a conflict in the board because one of the three people kind of on the research side, as you described it, Helen Toner, one of the board members, had co-authored this paper that kind of, it was about AI safety.
It was fully
criticized.
Snotty.
Yeah, it's criticized OpenAI and basically said Anthropic and some of the competitors are doing it right and we're not. And Sam Altman really didn't like that. He started advocating behind the scenes for the other board members to vote her out. So maybe that was the inciting incident for Sutskever switching.
Yeah, Natasha Mascarenhas, your colleague, has the story in the information and says Altman was very upset.
Paris has the TikTok of all of this brilliantly out before
That's
the
from
show.
Sunday, right?
No, but she has.
Oh, you did another one?
I wrote something that came out today that is a minute by minute kind of playthrough.
Oh, what am I talking for?
Really?
Let's just go to the TikTok.
So it's line. I moved it up, in fact.
Let's go to Paris's explanation.
Line 69.
How long
brilliant
is it?
TikTok, not TikTok like the platform, TikTok like we used to say in journalism, like a clock.
Oh, I thought it was a TikTok.
No, it's not a TikTok.
I was about to play a TikTok.
TikTok.
It
is a 4,000 word article.
You have the big
old journalism people.
These are the articles Paris said last week that you have a whole month to write. Obviously, you did not have a month to write this 4,000.
No, I luckily got to put that other thing aside, and me and my colleague Julia Black went into overdrive mode starting on Monday.
I'm going to shut up.
Together.
I had no idea.
Brilliantly done.
I mean, it like you said, this all kind of led to this breaking point where on Friday, Sam was ousted, and then Greg Brockman, the president, followed, and then everything kind of went to crap.
You start your lead in the piece is the APEC talk that Sam Altman gave with Laurene Powell Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow, in which he says, we don't need heavy regulation. The current models are fine. We don't need heavy regulation here, probably not for the next couple of generations. Although they're doing generations
every 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think he ends up going on to say like, maybe when AI and the models get to the point where they can do the output of a whole company or a whole country or the whole world, then we could have a collective discussion about kind of how to look over that. But I thought it was kind of telling that what ended up happening, 6 or so hours before he received a text inviting him to what ended up being the meeting where he was fired. Here he is talking about his kind of hands-off approach to safety, and to who else but Laurene Powell Jobs, widow of Steve Jobs, who was once kicked out by his own board only to return to lead it.
Yeah,
it's a little on the nose.
So I have to say, Leo, real quickly, I give Paris huge benefit points here, bonus points for getting in defenestration.
It's a good word.
That's a great word.
He was from the Latin fenestre, meaning window, thrown from the window. So,
as in Prague, he landed on some garbage and survived.
Yep, a real John Wick 4.
So, Paris, do you feel like that's my characterization is accurate? That there were these two not only two companies, but two factions on the board, and Ilya defected to the faction that fired him. And it's my contention that they did what they were supposed to do, that they were not concerned about profit. They were not concerned about maintaining the company. They were concerned about safety and the company living up to its mission of being AI for good. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
I think it's really difficult to say with any certainty right now what transpired with the board, because the board members, like the two women of which have now been kicked off the board, they've all been kind of tight-lipped about it throughout this whole process. They hadn't even really talked inside the company about what happened behind the scenes. I think that your analysis of this is a good interpretation of it and seems really likely, but we're not going to be, I think, 100% certain as to what went down and what the specific tipping point was until one of them speaks. Yeah.
By the way, with Altman going back, and I think everybody knows that the latest thing is that it looks like everybody's going back. Not going to Microsoft. Sutskever, Brockman. Sutskever tweeted, "I love you guys." He changed his tune.
That's what I was going to ask. This sounds.
If these are the people in charge of the future, Jesus, they can't get through a weekend.
So by I think like Sunday, Sutskever had totally flipped. It was, I think, like 5:15 or something in the morning, either like Sunday or Monday. He ends up tweeting out 5:15 in the morning, like West Coast time, even tweets out like, "I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Actually, Sam is great.
Yeah, who got
he needs
to
to
him?
Be back at the company."
Who got to him?
Apparently, who got to him is Brockman, the president and former executive chairman of the board. His wife made an emotional plea to him in the headquarters of OpenAI and cried, begging him to not turn on Sam. And that's what did it.
Oh, that's really
My favorite thing about your story, Paris, is obviously, I can't imagine that Jessica thought that we were going to have reporters out stooping people as New York Daily News people do, mafia people, right? And so there's obviously reporters from the information at all these locations counting pizza boxes coming out and things going in. And it's just amazing to watch the drama unfold.
Yeah, we have had a Slack channel, obviously, as we're doing all the reporting and stuff for this, and it was really incredible. One, to just watch all of my colleagues do this like great reporting, but two, I mean, I think on what it was like Saturday or maybe Friday, someone messages the group like, "Oh, I'm hearing there's people gathering outside of Sam Altman's place," and one of the reporters is like, "I live 0.3 miles away," and everyone's like, "Go," and it was raining. She's like, "I don't have an umbrella," but she just ran there and was outside until like midnight when someone came to relieve her. And we'd had people staged outside of Altman's house and then OpenAI for a while, and I think it took until the next day for some of the other outlets like the Times and the Journal to send people there.
I think the fact
that some really good color
that Helen Toner hasn't said anything to me. Again, we're reading tea leaves because we don't know, but to me is reflective of the integrity. Like the easiest thing for them to do would be to say, "Well, let me tell you what was going on," but they didn't. And I think that honestly, I feel like the board acted as a nonprofit board should, and with great integrity, even in the face of a lot of,
egg on face.
No, there's no egg on their face. They did exactly what they meant to do, and they did it right. But you're looking at it, and as everybody else is, from this capitalist point of view of, look at the value you destroyed. That's not what they're thinking about. Here's Ilya's tweet from 5:15 Monday morning. "I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions. I never intended to harm OpenAI. I love everything we've built together, and I will do everything I can to reunite the company." Obviously, after being harangued by Brockman's wife. Elon Musk's reply to that is interesting. Remember, Elon left the company, split off, and took his money back.
He helped found it, yeah.
He founded it, but he left when he said, "You guys are not doing the safety part. You're not doing the open part." Elon responded to Sutskever, "If OpenAI is doing something potentially dangerous to humanity, the world needs to know."
Well said, Elon Musk.
I will say this is the only time I will have to hand it to Elon Musk, but I do think he gets at a point here, which is important, which is if your interpretation of this is correct, Leo, which I think it's possible it is, why didn't the board communicate their position in any way
to the outside world, you mean? I mean,
to the outside world,
this had been
or
going
to
on
senior leaders, or anyone.
I think all year there's been this fight going on. I think there's a lot of evidence that tension and fight that they had, in fact, communicated all this.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, but the issue is they had this all hands meeting at like 2 p.m. Friday after they'd announced that Altman was out. They didn't really give any detail specifically on why he'd been ousted, other than kind of they hadn't been candid in his communications to the board. After this all hands, a bunch of senior leaders and executives at OpenAI kind of corner the board in a Zoom call, and they're like, you need to give us more detail. This isn't acceptable. Like, what are you talking about? Can you give us any specific instances, any examples? We've got to figure out something to tell people. And they wouldn't say anything. They said, they eventually, I think, cited legal reasons and said, we can't offer any more specifics.
So Paris, I think there's an every piece that goes into all of Altman's deals, and you listed most of them before. He also was going to start a chip company, and these were things for his benefit, where he could have personally been benefiting on the back of OpenAI.
Okay.
And in a normal business contract with a CEO, unless you're Jack Dorsey or Elon Musk, you would say when you create these things here, they are part of the company and they go to the benefit of the shareholders, whoever that may be.
Right.
But instead, Altman was doing all these other things. And there's also, they're going to have an investigation of this. And you can view that as Sam's side or the board's side, either way.
Well, it's Sam demanding it, isn't it? Or is
I
it's
think
the board?
it was also Sam agreed to it.
Okay.
Is the way it's put down.
Yeah, because the impression here that some people got and I got, and there's reasons for this, his sudden departure from Y Combinator. It said that he was doing the same thing at Y Combinator, and that Paul Graham had to fly over and fire him because he was, doing so many side dealings to his own benefit. There's also, and I hate to bring this up, but there's some stuff about his sister, some accusations from Sam Altman's sister about when they were kids. And so it's not unusual. It wouldn't be unreasonable to say, is there malfeasance here? Yeah. What did they mean when he said he wasn't honest with us? And I think it's reasonable to ask that question.
Okay.
And so I understand that.
It could be about deals. It could be about the cult stuff. I mean, the thing is,
we don't know if it's a Me Too thing. I mean, so many CEOs have been fired for Me Too things.
But here's where
the board
it's so
is saying
hard,
now that the COO said there's no malfeasance. So to take that out of your mind.
What's so hard here, Leo, is that it's like a religion, because you have to buy the punchline to buy the joke.
I think so, yes.
If you really believe that AGI can exist, and I think that is pure BS, number one, I don't think it's going to exist, then you go to the next phase, which is you believe AGI could destroy humankind, which I also think is BS, which means C, if you are, we talked about this on AI Inside, if you really think this is a danger, then the really crazies, what's his name, Eliezer Yudkowsky, who wrote in Time magazine, thinks that you should have thermonuclear war to destroy the machines because it's that dangerous. So you got a crazy
somebody who's watched the Terminator
hero sandwich here.
Many times.
Yeah, you're going real wacky. So to say that the board, to say that either side is right, you've got to buy into their worldview, and their worldview is wacky.
Well, let me since I argued
this is such a mess.
I argued in empathy with the board. Let me argue in empathy with Sam Altman. Sam Altman gets the bills and sees how expensive this is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And says, this isn't a nonprofit. It can't be a nonprofit if we want to achieve our goal. We need to do a deal with Microsoft because we got to get this Azure credits. Mm-hmm. Started with $1 billion, went to another $12 billion in Azure credits. Now suddenly Microsoft has a big stake. Did your reporting talk about Satya Nadella's reaction to this, Paris?
Well, I mean, Satya, much like everyone else, only found out 5 or 10 minutes before the news went public. I think it's really interesting. It seems from a lot of the reporting my colleagues have done over the weekend, and this is in the story as well, that Satya Nadella was really personally involved in advocating for Sam Altman's return as CEO.
Yeah.
He has a very close personal relationship with Altman, and he was kind of acting as the go-between for a lot of the other investors, like Khosla, Sequoia, and others. They were talking to Microsoft and being like, Microsoft, or Satya in this case specifically, put pressure on the board to get Altman back.
So I guess that job offer was never official from Nadella. to all.
It was
I mean, it was
play.
official, and then he immediately went on, I think, CNBC or
because
something.
it seemed like it came
and
out like a
kinda
press
walked it
release,
down.
like he was hired.
He did
you
this
know?
great media tour, sudden media tour
Yeah.
with Emily Chang on Bloomberg, and then or CNBC, and then Bloomberg, and then Kara Swisher, and said essentially the same thing on all three. I just love Sam Altman. I just love OpenAI, and we just want to work this out. And
I think your story said, Paris, that he said outright, "I'll be fine either way,
Yep.
as long as Sam."
He-
because
he walked
owns
it back,
49.
basically.
He owns 49, or Microsoft owns
Microsoft
49%
does,
of OpenAI. Interestingly, and I wonder if they'll have a new charter, and maybe we'll stop being a 501c3, because one of the stipulations is if they achieve OpenAI, AGI rather, no one gets a share. Microsoft doesn't get it if they get AGI.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's worth, I guess, breaking down a little bit for the listeners is like the structure of it is OpenAI is a nonprofit. There's this for-profit entity inside of it, and profits are capped for investors. I'm forgetting the exact structure of it, but during this period where they don't have AGI, the investors and people like Microsoft can get profit based on OpenAI's like earnings. But once you hit AGI, it all goes away.
Yeah. They make $1 billion a year now, but their burn rate, I'm sure, is much more than that. Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. From CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft to security and cloud fundamentals, your team can master it all with IT Pro from ACI Learning. TWiT listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Based on your team's size, you'll receive a properly quoted discount tailored to your needs. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit today.